Well, hello, and welcome to or welcome back, whichever applies. If you haven't been here before, I sit down and I watch a movie, and then I come over here and sit on this shitty, busted-ass computer chair and spill my thoughts about it. No script, no rehearsal, none of that garbage. Next to no editing. The point is just to be as raw and real as possible, for better or worse, often worse. If you're into that, awesome. If not, I apologize in advance. Oh, man. So, what did I watch today? Well, I watched this thing here, which is called Sea Fever, which is a movie. See, look at how great this intro is. If you've watched more than one episode, you're probably used to this by now, but if you're new, this is what you get to look forward to. Anyway, that being said, spoiler alert, you know the drill with spoilers. I will be talking about the film, things that happen in the film, specific instances, who lives, who dies, who falls in love, all that garbage. So you have been warned. You can skip ahead on a little timestamp there to the time that says thoughts, and usually I try to keep thoughts spoiler free. So if there are spoilers in the thoughts, it will say thoughts spoilers. Anyway, whatever. Or you can skip right to the rating if you just want to see what I thought of it, like as in a 1 to 10 rating. And I go into some pretty rad decimal points with these, so that's always fun. Anyway, enough rambling. What is the story? Well, we have a student who's basically studying marine life. She goes on a, take your student to work day type thing. No, she's goes on like a fishing trawler to do her studies for her doctorate or whatever. So awesome, that's cool. Fun fact, I used to want to be a marine biologist. Boy, that sure happened. Anyway. Oh, that's good tea. I'm almost out of that Inuit tea. It's very upsetting. Anyway, nothing to do with anything. So, she's on this ship, and we meet the crew. So we have the captain, Gerard, I don't know how they pronounce it. It's Gerard, whatever. And his wife, Freya. I assume it's his wife. I don't think they say that they're married, but it's pretty obvious they're together. Johnny is the guy who introduced our protagonist to this crew, etc. Gave him like the inn and whatnot. Who else is there? Kira, she's an old lady. I'm not sure what her relation is, but maybe she's someone's mom or something. And then we have Sudi and Omid, who are like the engineers or maintenance guys, essentially. But who's our protagonist, you may be asking? Well, our protagonist is named, I apologize if I mispronounce this because it is an Irish name, but it sounded like they were saying Siobhan or something like that. So I'm gonna call her Shiv. Let's just go with that. So anyway, she goes on the ship, she meets all the crew, etc., etc., etc. They give her like a tour of the bunk or whatever, and they see that everyone's sleeping. There's only 4 beds. She's like, well, there's more than 4 of us, and yeah, well, shift work. I mean, come on. Well, how much sleep do you guys get on here? And they're like roughly like 2 hours or so. Anyway, that's great. Anyway, they cast off, and I want to say it's Kira who notices she's wearing a toque and like, you cold? And she puts her thing up, and she's a redhead. And of course it's like, oh geez, okay, we'll take it off, you're already on the boat. Okay, so why is that a big deal? Well, I actually had no idea, but apparently in like fisherman superstition type stuff, I don't know if it's like region specific, but a redhead is bad luck to take on the high seas or something like that. Interesting. Well, anyway, too late. She's there. And did she cause all the chaos that's about to happen? Well, I mean, probably. If I know one thing about superstitions, is that they're always true no matter what. Anyway. So they set sail, and there's nightfall, and she's kind of shy. She's, doing her stuff, and doesn't join them for dinner. And anyway, the next day, they set up a little workstation for her and stuff, and the previous night she had seen some glowing algae, which was cool, because like I've always wanted to see that. That's just cool. Overall, it's just a pretty chill experience for the most part. Anyway, next day they see some whales, which is odd, because apparently, and they state this, whales don't usually go on like fishing routes because of the noise and all that garbage. So that's fun. But they see whales anyway. Very peculiar, am I right? Well, turns out that, I mean, this is the spoiler section, so I'm going to spoil part of the movie that doesn't really matter that much. So, I don't know, skip ahead like 13 seconds if you don't want to hear it. Anyway, Gerard had steered into a no-go zone. I can't remember what they're called. Exclusion zone. That's why there's whales. Anyway, lo and behold, that explains the whale thing. So if you skipped ahead, hopefully that was about 13 seconds, or if you care, I don't even know. Anyway, then they notice on the sonar, because, okay, so you know what, forget it. If it's just going to explain it no matter what. So the reason he went into the exclusion zone, I don't even know why I did like a spoiler in and on, whatever. Anyway, the reason he went there is because he saw like on his sonar like a big shoal of fish, and he's like, oh, this is the mother lode. And of course, naturally, of course it's in the exclusion zone. And there's reasons that you don't go in the exclusion zone, right? So it could be an environmental thing. It could be a military thing. It could be a protected area thing. So going into it, kind of a dick move, whatever. So, I mean, everything that's going to happen, I guess you brought up on yourself by doing so. Anyway, regardless. Suddenly, they feel the boat shake as they go over this shoal, and the boat stops. And they're trying to move the motor. And it's like, well, what the hell? Why can't we go forward? Do we hit something? Are we like on a reef or something? Doesn't make sense. They're in open water. I mean, it shouldn't be any rocks or anything there, but maybe there is. I don't know. Anyway, then we cut into the what is it? The engine room, the lower deck. I don't know what you call it in a ship. Lower deck. Yeah, that would have to be it, right? Because Star Trek uses all naval things, and they had lower decks. So okay, the lower deck. Anyway, we see Sudi and Omid patching up like a piece of the wall or something, and they're saying like something is changing the texture of the wood, and clearly that's bizarre, obviously, right? Because like what would do that? Acidity in the water or something? We don't know. Anyway, they're all looking at it and they're like, this is kind of interesting. And Gerard comes over and pokes it, and it's all squishy, and he's like, what the fuck? And he pokes it more, and his finger goes through it, and he's like, okay, that is fucking weird. And he starts peeling like the wood, which is now goo, away from this hole, and they see like a little mouth go. That's the noise it made, clearly. And they're like, what the is that, right? And so Shiv is kind of like, well, I mean, it looks like it might be like a barnacle or something like that. I'm not sure, in all honesty. And they're like, okay, well, you wanted to go diving when you went on this excursion with us or whatever, which was mentioned earlier, but not important to that part. Anyway, she's like, yeah. So like, okay, well, you can go dive and see what the fuck it is. She's like, all right. Anyway, she goes and she dives, and she's swimming down to the side of the boat where they saw that weird, like, the dematerialization of the wood, whatever you want to call it. And there are these long, like, worm-like, parasitic, glowing things stuck to the underside of the ship. And she's like, okay, that's bizarre. And she swims up to one, and it's not really moving or anything. And she puts a knife to, like, try to cut it away, and it, like, sprays some, like, black stuff. Cool. Okay. Anyway, that's the deal. So she goes up and she explains. Oh yeah, she looks down too, and she sees that these aren't individual creatures. This is a giant creature, and these are like tentacles. So she goes back on board and tries to explain to the crew what she saw. She's like, yeah, it's like either a massive squid or like a what'd she say? A Synarid? Is that what it's called? Whatever the like genus or whatever you want to call it is for jellyfish, essentially. Which actually makes sense because of the glowing. So yeah, that's a logical explanation. Why was it upside down aiming up? Well, there actually are jellyfish, real life species, who have the top of their heads resting on the bottom of the ocean floor, and their tentacles go up. So I mean, it could be like an offshoot of that. I don't know what they're called. I apologize, but yeah, those were kind of cool. They have them at like the Ripley's Aquarium in Toronto. They might have them in the Vancouver one too. I'm not sure. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's probably a massive undiscovered jellyfish, so that's fun. Anyway, yeah, so they decide, okay, well, if it's a squid, they say something about like it can't pull down more than its own weight, which makes sense because how could it, right? Clearly it's not going to be anchored to the floor. So yeah, the crew assumes it's like a squid, a giant squid or a colossal squid or something, which, I mean, They're big and they're pretty strong, but I don't really think that it would be able to hold like a fishing trawler, but maybe it's an undiscovered species, right? Because I mean, the ocean's so big, there are so many things in there. We don't know like every species in the ocean. We assume that giant and colossal squids are the largest, but I'm sure there are bigger ones that we just haven't discovered yet, because we're discovering new species like every single, I don't know, month, week, day? I don't even know. Anyway. I'm getting carried away. So, long story short, they decide to drop the fishing net and try to haul it up. So they drop the fishing net under the boat, try to haul it up, and as the chain or the rope is being reeled back in by the mechanical pulley or something, you see the ship start to go like this, meaning it's planted on the ground, and pulling in the rope is going to eventually capsize your boat because this thing is stronger than the buoyancy of the boat, which is crazy if you think about it. So they immediately stop and they reverse it, and Johnny was the one operating the thing, and he gets his hand caught in the spool, and they finally free him, and he's bleeding all over the place. Good time. Johnny's having a great day, eh? So let's skip ahead and get to the main point of this thing. So anyway, everything seems fine. Eventually, they end up assuming like the thing let them go because suddenly they're able to move or whatever. It must have let them go, bigger trouble than it was worth for this marine creature, or maybe it discovered the boat was inorganic or whatever, or inedible. So anyway, they're free. Johnny's sitting down, and Shiv decides to join the whole crew for dinner for the first time, which is great. So everyone's excited, like right on. They have a little cheers, like, you know what? You've been one of our better students to come on board, so like 3 cheers, hip hip hooray, all that bullshit for Shiv, because she's a hero apparently now. Cool, right? So that's fun. Shit, what happens then? Oh, fuck, yeah, there was another boat too. I forgot to mention this. So after he fixes his hand, there was another boat while they were still stuck, I should say. So this is before all the hand stuff and all that. And they go to the boat, and they find no one on the top floor. They go to the lower decks, and they open a room, like the cabin door or whatever, and there's like a group of people that are all dead. And then they realize their eyes are like gone, or like clawed out, or whatever. So obviously they're freaked out, and they kind of all agree, yeah, that's a little fucked up. We're not going to tell the rest of the crew what we saw. We'll just tell them that they had their own problems and they couldn't help us. So whatever, that's what they do. Anyway, so it's dinner time, and Shiv sits down. Everyone's happy, and there was a scene earlier that's not super important to the story, but I'll just tell you so it adds some weight to it, where Johnny and Shiv were in the bunk area, and they were talking a little bit more like personal stuff, and eventually gets to the point where he assumes that she's hitting on him, and he's like, I'd be okay if you did, and they almost smooch, and then people come downstairs and interrupt them, so that's great. Anyway, the point I'm saying this is because they never get a romantic moment, which I'm all for, because how many movies shoe in a romance just to say there was a romance? Like, fuck off, not everyone's gonna fall in love, right? Excuse my language, but like, really, it's such a trope. Anyway, Johnny is looking a little hot. So she says, Johnny, you're looking a little hot. And he says, thank you, thinking flirting. He's like, no, like, do you have a fever or something? I guess he's like flushed. He's like, I don't know. It's they assume that maybe his hand is infected with blood or whatever, and he should go lie down maybe or something like that. And she's the closest thing to a doctor there. She studies marine life and biology and stuff, so she knows the basics. So anyway, she's looking him over and like puts a flashlight to his eyes, and then she sees something move in his pupil, and she's like, I don't want to alarm anyone, but saw a thing. Anyway, Gerard is like, okay, let me see. Grabs a flashlight, looks in his eyes for a brief period of time. He's like, yeah, I don't see anything. So you're jumping at shadows in the dark. You might have an infection, so you got to rest so your body can fight that off. End of the story. Okay, great. Perfect. So that's fun. Anyway, Gerard leaves, and it's just Johnny and Shiv and Kira sitting in there, and Johnny gets up and goes to the sink, and he's like scratching his eye, and he starts like keeling over. He's in pain or something. All of a sudden, his eyes pop. Blood comes out, and then you see a bunch of little parasites fall into the sink. Now, On a boat, there's essentially a shared water system of like purified water. There's filters and all that stuff, but like I think it recycles it. I could be wrong, I don't know, but this particular boat, that's the case. So naturally, everyone comes running in, except Sudi. Well, where's Sudi? Well, he is having a shower right now, which, guess what, is using the shared water. They come in like, what the hell happened? They see Johnny dead, and Kira is like freaking out, unconsolable, and Shiv kind of says like, there were parasites in his eyes, it went into the sink, it's in the water. Where's Sudi? Oh shit, he's showering. So they rush down, they shut off the water to stop the shower, and by the time they get in there, they see him huddled in the on the shower floor stall, like freaking out. He's got like blood all over them and welts and shit. So okay, well, he's clearly infected. That's great. Oh boy, good times. So apologize if I get some of these things out of order, but I mean, it kind of doesn't matter where they go in here for the most part. So anyway, she has a sample of like the goop that was left from the wood transmogrification, or whatever you want to call it. So she decides to take a look at it, and she finds out that the goop is actually eggs, which means that like the water system has eggs and parasites in it. So it's like this whole thing. What do you do? Well, oh, by the way, they put Johnny in the cold storage, so he's infected, but he's away. Like, he's not gonna do anything. So they decide, okay, well, let's try some, disinfectant. We don't want to destroy. Or no, so the theory is, sorry, back up a second. Shiv's theory is, since they're a saltwater parasite and they're in a freshwater tank, it's a matter of time before they just die, because most species you can't transfer from salt to fresh or fresh to salt or back and forth or whatever. You're either one or you're the other, unless you're a bull shark, apparently, or like a couple of dolphins or something like that. Anyway, needless to say, that's the theory. They hold it out and they look in the tank later and they don't see any things moving around, no glow, and they're like, okay, I guess it worked. And then they go and check the filter and they pull it out and the filter has been eaten through. So, oh fuck, okay, these things obviously escaped somewhere. So now they're in the entire water system at this point. They thought they had them contained. No, they're throughout the entire water. So they have like a crew meeting and they're like, okay, well, do we dump the fresh water? It's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. We're like quite far away from from the shore, so we're gonna need the water, so we can't dump the water. Okay, well, what's an idea? And then Shiv's like, I got a crazy idea. And it is crazy because her idea is, let's electrocute the entire boat. So that's the plan. So the plan is wear rubber boots so that you're not like you're not affected by it. Omid's gonna try to insulate the engine the best he can, and of course Freya's like, what about fires? And then they're like looking around. She's like, I'm not risking my boat. And then of course Shiv, voice of reason, is like, yeah, would you rather risk the entire crew or your boat? If there's a fire, we can put it out. If someone's infected, they're dead basically. So voice of reason shines and they do it. They take a little generator and they pour salt water all over the deck, the upper deck and the lower front stern, or whatever it's called. Is it stern the front? I don't know. Or the bow? Stern and bow. I don't know nautical terms. Anyway, they pour salt water all over it to conduct the electricity. And they take a live wire and put it in. You hear and obviously like things are sizzling, and they have like a little, like a mermaid thing, a wooden thing on the front of the boat. That thing starts smoking, and of course Freya's freaking out. I guess that's like something she made, maybe. Anyway, it doesn't catch on fire. They end the current, and then they go check, and again, it looks dead. So did they succeed? Probably. Okay, great. So now we head home. Cool. They're about 30 hours from the shore. And then Shiv brings up an important point. We can't go onto the mainland. We have to quarantine. Obviously, everyone's like, what do you mean? We're good. Like, Freya has her check everyone's eyes and stuff. And anyway, long story short, not everyone's good. So Oh, Sudi dies, by the way. So his eyes don't explode, but he goes blind. That's a symptom, by the way, before you die. That's what happened to Johnny as well. So he goes blind and dies a lot more peacefully with Kira by him again. So she just sees everyone die. That sucks for her. And away into the cold storage with Sudi too, I guess. So now they're checking everyone's eyes, and you know, we have to quarantine because if one of us is infected and we go on to land, like, it's not just us. That's like an unknown pathogen, essentially, of like parasites that we would be unleashing. So it took Johnny 36 hours to show symptoms. So we have to wait at least 36 hours, which, to be fair, that's not that bad. I mean, it is because they're out of fresh water, so that sucks. And it is because there are parasites in the water system too, but if you're not using the water, then whatever, right? Theoretically, it sucks, but it's doable. But no one wants to do that. Anyway, like I said, checking eyes, and it turns out that Gerard is infected. And he yells out, "Fuck," really loudly and startles everyone. He's like, "I'm sorry, guys, I'm sorry. Just like, this is not ideal." Makes sense. They have a little confrontation, and basically no one wants to stop the boat they're going. So what does Shiv do? She goes onto the back of the boat and takes one of those heavy-duty ass ropes, throws it in the water right where the propeller is. It gets sucked in, lodges itself, and seizes the engine, and the boat stops. Omid saw this, so he decides to tattletale. To be fair, okay, sure, but you know, what a snitch. Anyway, Omid the snitch tells everyone and is like, yeah, so tell them what you did. And she explains it, and she's like, yeah, like, we cannot go to shore. And anyway, Kira's had enough of it and decks her right in the head. It's like, okay, wow, holy crap. They restrain her and all that. And Gerard goes and lies down with Freya and all that stuff, I guess, so she can comfort him. There's always the hope that the person's going to live, right? But unfortunately with this, I just realized something. 2019. When did COVID happen? Could there be a hidden message in this film? Anyway, regardless what your views are on the subject. Okay, long story short, so friggin' Kira's infected now too. That's why I guess she had the burst of anger or something, and she has a moment silent with Shiv. And she says genuinely, like, heartfelt, like, I'm really sorry. And then strangles her. But she's an old lady, so Shiv breaks free, and there's a chase, and she climbs up the ladder, and old lady's trying to tug, and she shakes her foot, and old lady falls and dies. Anyway, she was infected too, and something comes out of her eye, and gets stomped, and they throw her in the cold storage, and she goes to tell Freya, and all this stuff, and Freya's crying, and Gerard's dead, so into the cold storage he goes. Anyway, at this point, it's basically just Shiv, Omid, and Freya. Freya decides, fuck this, I'm gonna take a little rowboat and go out. And they're like, we're 30 hours away at like full steam. In a rowboat, you're gonna, you know, good luck, basically. And she's like, yeah, well, I don't care at this point. I'm not staying on here. You know, I have to quarantine anyway, right? So the longer it takes for me to get back, she says, kind of like tongue-in-cheek. And she fucks off. And they're like, okay, well, that's great. Cool. Anyway, then they hear some banging from inside the ship. Turns out the electricity didn't kill it. So it's still alive in the tanks, and I guess the eggs hatched and grew, or whatever, the parasites grew, and so the plan is, okay, well, ocean water's cold, let's heat it up so it can be dormant enough for us to release it. That's Shiv's plan. And Omid's like, release it? You mean kill it? She's like, no. It's a rare organism, undiscovered organism. We don't know if it's endangered, so we're going to release it. That's like the scientifically responsible thing to do in this situation. True, but also, you know, kind of... Anyway, whatever. So that's the plan. So they heat up the water tank, and you hear this thing banging and thrashing, and they open it, and it like kind of reaches up, and it's mellow, and they're like, okay, good, so whatever. And then it disappears, and then water starts coming up. They're like, ah, shit, it ate through the hull? Are you serious? So now the ship is sinking. Perfect. I forgot to mention, Gerard did confess after he realized he was infected, because he felt responsible for putting everyone into this, that he did steer them into the exclusion zone, meaning the Coast Guard doesn't know they're there. Radio contact is minimal. Perfect, right? And then Gerard died, so even better. The boat's sinking. They're fucked, essentially, right? So that's great. Fantastic. Anyway, the plan? Let's light the boat on fire, and that's a beacon. Cool. I mean, at this point, what do they got to lose? Like, why not? So they set the boat on fire, and they throw, like, a rubber dinghy in the water, and they hop in it. But Omid can't swim, so it's a good thing he works on a trawler in the middle of open water for a living, so that's cool. Anyway, he jumps, and he misses it entirely, and he goes in the water, and he's struggling, and then he gets pulled under, so Shiv, in her infinite bravery, decides to jump in and go save him, which she does somehow. I guess the thing's still weakened from the hot water or whatever. Anyway, she goes down and she gets him free, and they swim up, and they both climb onto the dinghy, and they see a boat in the distance, and they're like, oh, hell yeah, the fire worked. Awesome, we're all good. And then she realizes, shit. She has a cut. She's like, I'm infected. Son of a bitch. They have a little heartfelt kind of like, we can hospital. No, it's too late. They saw what this thing does. They see how fast infection spreads. So she's like, you know what? Fuck it. She dives into the water, swims down to the giant creature underwater, and they show it glowing in its mouth, like bleh, whatever its mouth does. I don't know. Sound effects are necessary. Don't question me on that. So she swims down, and then we can only assume she got right? The thing eated her. Nom-noms, whatever. I'm an idiot. Anyway, that's great. And as the boat approaches, you see Omid waving because he's like, well, fuck, I guess I'm the sole survivor. So he's the final girl for this film, which is okay. And then the credits roll. And some song plays that was kind of catchy and kind of mellow. It was not bad. So, what did I think of this one? Well, I saw people saying that it's like The Thing, but in the ocean. I don't agree with that at all, because it didn't like mutate the people nearly to the extent of The Thing. It didn't even really mutate them. It just like basically, this is the spoiler-free part, but I mean, you can assume someone dies at least, right? Anyway, regardless, so it's not really comparable to The Thing, I don't think. It's I'm trying to think what it would be comparable to. Like, they're parasites that act almost more like a disease than a vicious creature. Mostly. So there's that. So I don't think that that's a fair comparison. And also, The Thing is just such a high bar that, I mean, it's not even fair to compare a lot of these movies that are not nearly the budget and number of theaters it's released in as, like, The Thing. So that said, I think it's kind of its own film. I mean, there are parts that borrow from other things for sure. The story, there wasn't much of a story. It's just like, nah, they go on a boat, they go do their thing, shit happens, oh my god, right? So, not a phenomenal story. Pacing is pretty decent for the most part, though, so that's okay. It's all open waters. There's not really a lot of scenery. Like, even though it's an Irish film, or the characters are Irish at least, you don't get to see like the beautiful countryside or anything, so it is what it is. But I mean, there wouldn't be a point of showing it because it's a movie that takes place in the open water, so whatever, that's fine. The chemistry of the characters is pretty decent for the most part. It's the acting is okay, like no one's unbelievable. That said, I am not Irish, and I don't see Irish people and hear them day to day, so maybe it was bad acting, or maybe it was phenomenal, I don't know. I bought it though, so whatever that's worth. As a Canadian, or an American, I guess too, would probably be fine with it. The design of the antagonist thing problem that they're dealing with was kind of cool. I mean, I like anything sea creature-y in a movie that's like ominous, and like triple points for bioluminescent things, which, spoiler alert, there's some bioluminescence here. That doesn't ruin the story, so I don't really care that that's in the non-spoiler section. All in all, yeah, I mean, it didn't do anything that, like, broke new grounds for horror movies at sea or whatever, or anything like that. But it's not a regrettable film either. I'm not selling it very well, am I? All that said, I did enjoy it. Again, though, it wasn't phenomenal, but it was still a neat watch. I may or may not watch it again. So, I mean, take that for what it is. I mean, I think the best way to explain how I felt about it is to give it a rating, right? So, let's get to the rating. What am I going to rate it? I'm going to throw some crazy decimals out this time. So how about like a 5.8125? Sure. 5.8125. There you go. That's what I'm rating it. Why am I rating it that? Such a specific number with decimal points? Because why the hell not? You know, like, come on. That's how I feel. Regardless, should you watch this film? I mean, sure. Where did I watch it again? I actually legitimately don't remember what streaming service it was on. So, sorry. But it's out there somewhere. You'll find it. I mean, chances are you could find it on like a pirate site or something. Not that I condone that, but, you know. But you probably could, you know. Other than that, yeah, check it out. I mean, if you like that kind of a thing, if you like the open ocean and like, not like in your face, like, you know, people getting stabbed and their arms ripped off and all that. Like there's one scene where there's a little bit of gore, but it's not like ridiculously crazy. So you're not going to see like, you know, bone tomahawk scene. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about, or nothing like from like Saw or, you know, a Serbian film or something like that. But it's more of a psychological thing, I guess. So take that for what it's worth. I've already gone longer than I need to though, so we'll end it here. That's what I think of Sea Fever. Appropriate name, by the way. Why? You'll have to watch and find out. Or you would know if you watch the spoiler part of this. Anyway, I'm rambling, so we're going to cut it here. Cheers.